Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back on another episode of the Golden Age, our weekly series of Warhammer Fantasy Battle Reports, and this is Battle Report number 101. It is a 3,000 point battle that is fought between my friend Lady Domina as well as myself. Lady Domina is bringing House Day here, the Golden Reavers of Skyros, a 3,000 point Dark Elves army, and I am continuing with my Shrieking Masquerade, my 3,000 point Slaanesh Legion of Chaos army. So this is the very first battle report after battle report number 100, that huge 16,000 point battle report that we just did between all four different Chaos Legions. And I have to be honest with you, going back to 3,000 points felt kind of weird. I felt like I was missing something because I was only fighting one opponent, and I was playing at 3,000 points instead of 4,000 points. So it was actually kind of neat, actually, with all things considering. I can't believe we actually got dipped to 101 different battle reports, and that's all thanks to you guys, the audience. So I really appreciate your guys' viewership. And so, with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll. We're going to play some background music as well as show you images of both armies. At the same time, we'll also show you the consistency of both armies. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for both these armies, you can pause at your own leisure or check down in the description box below, and you can find the army list there as well. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought, or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Valor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
So let's go and talk about the scenario rules real quick. The scenario rules is Battle Line. It is the most typical game of Warhammer that we play on this channel with standard deployment as well as standard victory conditions. So with the scenario rules, let's go and talk about exactly what the battle plan for this battle report is. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x6 table. I am deployed on the near side of the table, while my friend Lady Domina is deployed on the far side of the table. So pretty much, as you can see here, she pretty much has her infantry forces as well as her monsters making up the center of her battle lines, with that huge unit of Cold One Knights as well as her bolt throwers making up the flank that she has on her right hand side. And pretty much my idea here is just, I'm going to try to keep on doing what I always do with this army. I'm going to try to charge forward with my infantry forces in the center, as using my chariots on the flank on the left hand side to crush her crossbowmen if I'm able to. At the same time, sweep to the right, attack her war machines with my Nightkin, with my Chaos Sorcerer, as well as my Slender Slaughters, and hopefully I can disrupt her lines that way and just kind of chop her pieces for the most part. As you can see, I pretty much kind of like just the typical kind of like U-shaped ambush I'm kind of going with, and try to overlap her flanks and try to catch her in a full envelopment so that way I can destroy her. And that's pretty much the battle plan kind of going on with this one for the most part. So with the battle plan over, let's go and talk about deployment real quick. Alright, so first of all, starting with the Shrieking Masquerade over here on the far left-hand side, I got a unit of 5 Seekers of Slaanesh called the Resplendent Stalkers. They have Standard Bearer, and that's the only upgrade that they have for that unit. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side of my center lines, I got 3 Chaos Chariots. On the left-hand side, I got the Sign of Sylph as a Chaos Chariot, the Mark of Slaanesh. Right next to the right-hand side is the Priority of Enoch, another Chaos Chariot, with the Mark of Slaanesh. And found on the right-hand side, that is the Call of the Denied One, is a Gore Beast Chariot of Slaanesh with Scythe Wheels, Halberds, as well as a Gore Beast. And it also has a Mark of Slaanesh as well. And then right next to on the right-hand side, that is a Flesh Carnival, is a unit of 20 Forsaken of Slaanesh with Chaos Armor as well as Freakish Mutations. In the center of my army is where most of my forces locate up. On the front is the Children of Rhine, is a unit of 5 Chaos Warhounds with no upgrades. And behind them is the Beast of the Midian, is a unit of 25 Besegor of Slaanesh with Musician as well as Standard Bearer. They got great weapons as well as heavy armor. They're also packing the Standard Discipline to give them +1 for the leadership. And leading that unit are 2 of my characters. In the front center, that is Inkari, the Ravager of Ulthuan. She is a Doombull of Slaanesh. She's also the general of my army. She's got heavy armor and shield. She has the Steel Claws, the Ramhorn Helm, as well as Talisman of Endurance, as well as a Gnarled Hide. And also in the middle of that unit on the right hand side of him, that is Jajak the Overseer. That is a Wargore of Slaanesh. He is my battle standard bearer. He's got a great weapon, heavy armor, and shield. He's also got the Beast Banner, giving this unit +1 to their strength, meaning that all those fighters have strength 7 with their great weapons, and Inkari also has strength 7 as well, so she's an absolute beast in close combat. On the right hand side there is another unit called the Empty Orchestra. You know, 23 Demons of Slaanesh with Musician and Standard Bearer. They also got the Banner of Swiftness, making the movement 7. And leading that unit is the Infernal Rapture. She is a Herald of Slaanesh, a level 1 wizard with the Lore of Slaanesh, with the Lash of Slaanesh as her spell. She's got Lesser Gift, which is Cleaving Blow, and she also got the Greater Locus of Swiftness. And that makes up my center lines. And finally, making my left-hand flank, I got my 2 flanking units. On the left-hand side, that is the Slender Slaughters, is a unit of 3 Fiends of Slaanesh, and right next to them is the Nightkin, is a unit of 5 Hellstriders of Slaanesh with full command. And also in that unit as well, leading it is Telemachon and Lyras. He is my Chaos Sorcerer, Lord of Slaanesh, level 4 Wizard. He's packing the Lord of Slaanesh. The spells he has is Pavane of Slaanesh, Slicing Shards, Phantasmagoria, as well as Cacophonic Choir. He's got Chaos Armor. He's mounted on a Steed of Slaanesh. He's also got the Sword of Might, Skull of Catan, and Talisman of Preservation. He's also packing the Allure of Slaanesh, that way they take a leadership test in order to attack him, as well as Flaming Breath for obvious reasons. And that pretty much makes up my deployment here on the far right hand side of the battlefield. Alright, so from there we go across the battlefield directly to House Daykeer, the Golden Reavers of Skyros. This is my friend Lady Domina's army. On her far left-hand side, she actually has, in the back this time, her Shacklemore Seers as, 5 Doomfire Warlocks. With the Master of Warlocks, they got hand weapons, Dark Steeds, as well as spells of the Coven. And instead of deploying them forward with her Vanguard movement, she decided to keep them in the back. And the reason why is because, yes, while the Shacklemore Seers do have a 4 ward save, they don't have that same ward save when going against Slaanesh marked units, which is also kind of cool because that's my entire army, which is actually kind of nice for once. In the center of her deployments, where most of her army is located at, on the left-hand side, that is the Morning Dawn, as you have 20 Dark Shards with Musician as well as Standard Bearer. They got repeater crossbows, hand weapons, as well as light armor. They're also packing the Banner of Eternal Flame. And right in the middle there, that is the Sea Stone Sorrows, as 38 Dread Spears with Musician, Standard Bearer. They got spears, light armor, as well as shields, as well as a Standard Discipline giving them +1 leadership. And leading that unit, we have 2 different characters. On the left-hand side is Sister Sinner, the Oracle of Kost. She is a Supreme Sorceress, level 4 Wizard with the Lore of Dark Magic. She's packing the Power of Darkness, Word of Pain, Shroud of Despair, and my all-time favorite spell, Arenzapal's Black Horror, which of course everyone knows is I just have a great time with that spell. She's also packing the Book of Asher, giving her +1 to her Dispel, as well as her casting, as well as the Talisman of Endurance, giving her 5 ward save. And the far right-hand side of that little unit is Captain Lodi Daykeer, the Golden Sun. He is a master. He's also the battle standard bearer from the army. He's got a great weapon, heavy armor. He's got a Sea Dragon cloak as well as a shield. Right behind the back, that is Lord Midas Daykeer, the Golden Lord of Skyros. He's a high beast master. He's also the general for this army. He's got a Sea Dragon cloak. He's packing the Chill Blade, Armor of Fortune, as well as the other Trickster's Shard. And he's riding Kalibos, a Manticore with Blind Rage, as well as Iron Hard Skin. And then right next to him, of course, are 2 more monsters. On the right-hand side, that is Virzil the Broken. It is a War Hydra with Fire Breath upgrade. And right next on the right-hand side, that is Rathric the Maw, a Charybdis. And finally, make up Lady Domina's right-hand flank. On the left-hand side, that is the Crimson Blades of Charon Card, as unit 14 Colon Knights with full command. They're packing lances, heavy armor, shields, as well as a cold one. And leading that unit is my Lady Murder, the Tamer of Beasts. She is a sorceress, level 1, a wizard with the Lore of Beasts. She's packing Wiston's Wild Farm. She's got a hand weapon and riding a cold one, and she also has a Dispel Scroll. Right next on the right-hand side, that is Mistress Iridani, the Consort of Dagon. She is a master. She's got a great weapon, heavy armor, Sea Dragon cloak, as well as a shield. She's also wearing the Cloak of Twilight, giving her 3 ward save against magic attacks, as well magical missiles, as well as shooting attacks, and also causes D3 multiple wounds in the first round of combat. So she's kitted out to kill, and she's also running a Dark Pegasus. Next on the right hand side, those are the Storms of Kost, as 2 Reaper Bolt Throwers, and on the far right hand side, Vanguard up slightly, that is the Shadowrunners. You have 5 Dark Riders of Standard Bearer. They got spears, repeater crossbows, and light armor, and they're also running Dark Steeds. And that pretty much makes the deployment for that. So with deployment over, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both Lady Domina and I roll for initiative to see which of us will be going first. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1, and the Legion of Chaos managed to get the initiative on this one, so I will be going first. And as you can see in this photo, I just move up as quickly as I possibly can. The first thing I do, of course, I declare a charge. I declare a charge with the Nightkin. I charge directly into the Shadowrunners on the far right-hand side. Lay it down. I looked at the hold because she doesn't want my guys to blow right through that unit and attack her bolt throwers. I also bring up the Slender Slaughters, just marching them up forward in order to help them out with flank attacks, and also to exploit that right-hand flank. At the same time, I also move up, march everything else up forward. I move up the Resplendent Stalkers up forward to act in a blocking position to stop those Dark Shards from shooting anything. I move my chariots to the left-hand side as well as my infantry force in the center and moving as quickly as possible in order to engage my enemy. And of course, I also marched up my Children of Rhine right there in the center to act as a speed bump to intercept anything that might want to charge my way. And that pretty much makes up my move phase for this one. So here's a close-up of the Sign of Sylph, the Depravity of Enoch, as well as the Call of Denied One, moving up as quick as they can to exploit the left-hand flank. And here's a close-up of the Resplendent Stalkers, moving up within an inch of those Dark Shards and just basically acting as crossbow fodder and just absorbing some shots to leave my other units perfectly safe. And here's a close-up of my infantry forces, moving up as quick as they can in order to engage my enemy. And the only thing I'm really worried about right now are her monsters. I'm afraid of her monsters, Virzil the Broken as well as Rathric the Maw. I'm also afraid of the Crimson Blades of Charon Kar. Those guys are deadly. So I put up my Children of the Rhine to act as a speed bump in case those monsters charge forward. I have my Flesh Carnival to deal with the Spearmen because I don't fear those guys too much. And of course, I'm protecting my right-hand flank with my Empty Orchestra acting as a tar pit for that unit of Coleman Knights. And hopefully I can destroy her monsters as well as her general with my own general, as well as the Beast of the Midian. And finally, here's a close-up of the far right-hand flank with my Nightkin charging directly into the Dark Riders. Now, if you're wondering why there's two of my Nightkin missing, the reason why is because when I charged forward, laid down, decided to stand and shoot as a reaction, managed to plink off two of my Hellstriders, so that part was kind of sad. And right on the left-hand side, you can see my Slender Slaughterers moving up in order to protect the left-hand flank. So with the movement phase over with, go directly to the magic phase. And in the magic phase, I managed to roll 9 on that one, which is Khorne's Wrath. Unfortunately, nobody fell victim to Khorne's Wrath, so it just ended up becoming more like Khorne's Gentle Butterfly Kisses instead, so nothing much happened there. And unfortunately, Dan was able to stop all my spells from going off. It was pretty much uneventful. So with the magic phase over with, we skip the shooting phase because I don't play that game, and we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, I managed to slaughter the Shadowrunners to a man, which is absolutely fantastic. Not before losing two of my Hellstriders in the process of doing so. Lucky for me, though, I did manage to pass my panic test because my character Telemachon Lyras is the man. And basically, it was the combat. It was pretty much Telemachon Lyras that did most of the killing. I managed to kill 4, I think, between the attacks between the Steed as well as himself. I managed to kill 4 of those Dark Elves, while the last one was finished off with my last Hellstrider, so that part was kind of neat as well. And because I destroyed those guys, too, I also get Devastating Charge, which is really nice. So because I destroyed that unit on the charge, I just elect to run through and to overrun. And that causes my Nightkin to go charging directly into the members of the Storms of Khass, engaging that first bolt thrower in close combat, which is absolutely fantastic. And yes, I passed my data terrain test because I'm fast cav, so that part is absolutely wonderful. So with the combat phase over with, go directly to the bottom turn number 1 for the Dark Elves. And with the YOLO in the air, we go directly to the bottom turn number 1 for the Dark Elves, and Lady Danomina decides to charge forward. She is not going to hold back, she doesn't have to. So the first thing, of course, she does is she declares a charge of Virzil the Broken, who goes directly into my Children of Rhine, which of course I allow because that's what they're there for. Rathric the Maw then quickly follows afterwards and charges directly into them as well. At the same time, she also declares a charge with the Crimson Blades of Charon Kar. She actually lands a long distance charge, rolling Boxcar on that one. So because of that, her Coleman Knights go crashing directly into the Empty Orchestra, catching that unit in close combat. So I am kind of apprehensive about that unit because the Crimson Blades of Charon Kar can chew through some units like it's nobody's business. However, I am having a Demon Nets unit taking them on, so they are a tar pit unit. They're not very good at it, but they're a tar pit unit nonetheless, and they're unbreakable, so hopefully I can delay them for another turn or two, and that's what I'm hoping for the most part. And then, of course, she also declares a charge with Mistress Iridani, the Consort Dagon, who goes flying across the battlefield and engages in close combat with my Slender Slaughterers. And from there, of course, her forces kind of basically move up kind of normally. She moves up her, she actually marches up her Shacklemore Seers. They kind of go to this little pocket that's between my Flesh Carnival as well as my Decall the Deny one there in the center. And what that means that, of course, they're not within my view arc, so I can't charge them. So they're kind of like in my dead space, and that's a bad spot from the beam because they can cast spells, and that would be all kinds of bad for me. At the same time, she also flies up her General on the Manticore in the space between my Empty Orchestra as well as my Children of Rhine, knowing full well I won't be able to attack her at all. She also moves up her Seastone Starros in such a way to protect the left-hand flank of her monsters, and of course the Morning Dawn to stay exactly where they're located at. And of course her bolt throwers on the far right-hand side are engaged in close combat with my Nightkin. And that pretty much makes a remove phase for this one. So here's a close-up of the Shacklemore Seers, going right directly to the pocket between my chariots as well as my Flesh Carnival, and that's a really bad spot for them to be in because they decided to use the boosted version of what you call it, the Soul Blight. They could actually just hit my entire army and give me -1 strength and -1 toughness, so that's kind of a nightmare scenario for me. And here's a close-up of the Morning Dawn as well as the Seastone Sorrows, pretty much standing their ground for the most part. And here's a close-up of Virazil the Broken as well as Rathric the Maul are really getting ready to butcher my Chaos Hounds, as well as her General Lord Midas Daycare, the Golden Lord of Skyros, as well as the Crimson Blades of Charon Car charging directly into the empty orchestra. And finally, here's a close-up of Mistress Iridani, the Consort of Dagon, charging directly into my Slender Slaughters. And finally, here's a close-up of my Night King going directly into the Storms of Chaos. And I'm looking forward to slaughtering some War Machines, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. So with the move phase over with, you go directly to the Magic phase. And during the Magic phase, I do, of course, channel my dice by consulting the Skull of Catan. And unfortunately for me, I don't get any additional power dice, and I lose 2 points off my reputation. So because of that, the Whispers are starting to make sense now in Telemachon and Lyras' head. And the worst thing ends up happening. She ends up casting the boosted version of Soul Blight, which basically affects all enemy units within 24 inches. So because all my units now within 24 inches of the Shacklemore Seers have -1 to their strength as well as -1 to their toughness, which is just a nightmare scenario for me. Meanwhile, over here in the Magic phase, Sister Sinner of Oracle of Chaos actually was able to get a couple of spells off. First of all, she got off Power to Darkness, which I let go, so that way she got +1 strength for her Seastone Sorrows, and at the same time generating 2 additional power dice for herself. She then decides to cast Doombolts, and I decided to let that one go. It was actually, and the reason why I did that is because I knew she was going to try to go for the big version of Rinzapol's Black Horse, so because of that, the Doombolt spell did go off. Magic kills 6 of my Forsaken. I forgot to take a photo of it in this phase, but don't worry, when we get to the shooting phase, I'll show you a photo of that. What ended up happening for them. So that part was kind of sad. I lost 6 of my Forsaken in the process of doing so. When then she didn't charge cast Arinzapal's Black Horror, I stopped that spell dead to rights by throwing all my Dispel dice at it. So that part was pretty epic. And as you see in this photo, the Morning Dawn decided to open fire with their 40 shots of crossbow fire directly into the Resplendent Stalkers, and they managed to atomize my unit, which is kind of sad. However, I am willing to lose my Resplendent Stalkers if it keeps those Morning Dawn guys from actually shooting anybody else, so that part was kind of nice. Bought myself a little bit of breathing time for a turn anyways. And during the shooting phase, one of the Aura of the Storms of Chaos opened up with multi-shots directly into my Beast of the Minion and managed to plink off 3 of my Bestigors, so that part was kind of sad. But at the same time, as you can see right there on the left-hand side, that's the Flesh Carnival. Those guys got plinked off with the Doombolt that I talked about earlier, so that part was pretty sad for me as well. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, good gravy of the combat phase, Mistress Iridani. That lady, oh my god, that lady brings the pain. She gets that D3 wounds every single time she manages to wound you, and that part was horrible. She put 5 wounds onto my unit as well, and I was only able to put 1 wound back to her, so that part was absolutely tragic. Between the attacks between her character as well as her Dark Pegasus, it was absolutely atrocious. I lost this fight between these 2 units by a landslide. And as you can see, due to demonic instability from the difference in combat res, the rest of the Slender Slaughters just evaporated into the warp. And so Lady Dawn does a quick combat reform with Mistress Iridani to face off against the right-hand flank of my army. So that part was super tragic. Meanwhile, combat between the Nightkin versus one of the Storms of Chaos was absolutely fantastic. Managed to destroy that unit right off the bat. Most of the kills, of course, were due to Telemachon and Lyras. Needless to say, I do, of course, charge through and go directly into the next unit and engage the second Bolt Thrower. At the same time, earning a Stubborn for my unit now due to their Soul Hunter ability. So now I have Devastating Charge as well as Stubborn on this unit, which is absolutely fantastic. And combat between the Crimson Blades of Charon Car as well as the Empty Orchestra was pretty lackluster. I flubbed bad. I'm just going to be straight up honest with you guys on that one. I managed to flub bad on that one. First thing, of course, that ends up happening is that I declare a challenge with the Infernal Raptors. I was hoping that my Lady Murder, the Tamer of Beasts, would answer the call in combat, but she decided to chicken out and send the champion instead. So because of that, I had no problem butchering the champion, which is great. So I killed the champion and Plasma Launch Wound on top of that, giving my total of 2. The rest of our attacks, however, were not that great. Lady Domina just pretty much flubbed her attacks for the most part. The Dark Elves weren't able to cause any wounds. Same thing with the Cold Ones. Whatever she failed to do to hit or to wound, I managed to save my ward save, and vice versa. I flooded my attacks right back, unable to cause any injury for these guys for the most part. So because of that, this combat pretty much goes nowhere. We're both just kind of standing there for the most part. Both of us passed our panic check, our break test, so no one's going anywhere, and we go another round for combat. And as you can imagine, Rathric the Maw, as well as Virils of the Broken, had no problem killing my Children of Rhine. They destroy that unit, they run through and overrun directly into the Beast of the Midian, charging directly into Enkari, the Ravager of Ulthuan, to jack the Overseer as well as the Beast of the Midian. And to be honest, I'm really looking forward to this combat, to be perfectly honest, just because I want to see what Enkari, my Ravager of Ulthuan, she is unstoppable, my Doombull. So I'm really excited to see what she can do against two monsters, because that would be like the ultimate test, all things considered. So I'm actually looking forward to that one as well. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Legion of Chaos. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Legion of Chaos, and this photo is taken after the movement phase. As you can see in this photo, I just kind of go for it for the most part. I decided to just kind of like see what I can do and just charge forward. The first thing I do, of course, I declare a charge with my my chariots. So the Depraved Enoch, as well as the Call of Night One, go charging directly into the Morning Dawn. So I catch those guys in the frontal attack. So that part was pretty epic. At the same time, I also declare a charge with the Flesh Carnival. They go tearing across the battlefield, go directly into Sea Stone because if there's anything that Forsaken can do, it is chew up a bunch of Dark Elves like it's nobody's business. At the same time, of course, the rest of my units are currently stuck in close combat, so they really don't go anywhere. So here's a close-up of the move phase. You can see the Depraved of Enoch as well as the Call of Night One go charge directly into the Morning Dawn. At the same time, the Flesh Carnival go directly into the Sea Stone Sorrows, and I'm really looking forward to that. And here's a close-up of my Beast of the Midian, still engaged in close combat, Virils of the Broken, as well as Rathric the Maw, as well as the Empty Orchestra, still engaged in close combat with the Crimson Blades of Karankar. And finally, here's a close-up of my Nightkin, still engaged in close combat with the Storms of Kos. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. And in the magic phase, I got the roll to on that one, which is a chaotic ebb, which basically means that all my demonic units have -1 to their ward save, so that part was kind of sad too. Needless to say, with such a low amount of Paradise, my magic phase really didn't do much of anything for the most part. The only thing I was able to do, of course, was dispel Soul Blight, so that way I don't have to worry about -1 strength and -1 toughness of my units anymore, and that's pretty much what I emptied all my Paradise in. And that pretty much make up the magic phase. So with the magic phase over, we skip the shooting phase because I don't believe in it, and we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, you can see in the top here, my Nightkin, as well as Telemachon and Lyras, the mass print, had no problem whatsoever finish out the last of the Storms of Kos. So just like that, I now have all 3 bonuses unlocked from Stole Hunters. I got Devastating Charge, Stubborn, as well as a 4 ward save, which is absolutely fantastic. And once again, combat between the Crimson Blades as well as my Empty Orchestra was pretty lackluster, all things considered. Poor Lady Dominic, she just kept on flubbing her rolls. If it wasn't failing to hit, she was failing to wound. If it wasn't failing to wound, it was me making my ward save. Yes, with my 6 of ward saves. This tells you how bad she was doing with her dice roll, because this is also including her cold one attacks too, which is really, really sad. It was kind of unfortunate for the most part. She was able to kill 4 of my Demonettes, which is kind of sad, but in turn though, I managed to kill 3 of her cold ones at the same time. So because of that, basically she beats me by 1 in terms of wound, but I got a standard. She's got a standard as well, which also gets canceled out, but I have 2 ranks, so she doesn't have it. So I actually beat her by 1, but she makes her break test no problem because, you know, Dark Elves don't break like that. So we go up for another round of combat. Meanwhile, close combat over here on the far center between Enkari and against the Virils of the Broken and Rathric the Maw. Oh my god.
I'm chained, and I cannot die. I'm chained, and I cannot die. I'm chained, and I cannot die. No, I cannot die. No, I cannot die.
So this is what ended up happening. First of all, Enkari, the Ravager of Ulthuan, she gets to go first because she has higher initiative than both Rathric the Maw as well as Virils of the Broken. So because I decided to direct all my attacks into Rathric the Maw, I'm in within base contact with that monster. I see him as the greatest threat for my general. So because of that, needless to say, Enkari had no problem just putting the hurt directly onto Rathric the Maw. I actually put him all the way up to 1 wound on that one, and when Rathric the Maw attacked back, I actually passed with my armor save. I managed to save all my armor saves on that one. So because with the Ramhorn Helm, every single time I pass a armor save, I do another attack back at basic strength. So because of that, that basic strength would actually finished off Rathric the Maw. Managed to kill him was absolutely fantastic. So he's dead. So because of that, Virils of the Broken then goes next, because all my fighters, of course, have always strike last because they have great weapons. So Virils of the Broken then goes next, of course, pours all of her attacks directly into Enkari, the Ravager of Ulthuan. Managed to stop all those attacks. just basic attacks. Then she does a Thunder Stomp, and she managed to hit me 3 times with the Thunder Stomp, but I was able to ward save those as well. So because of that, nothing happened with that one as well. So because of that, I then decided to attack forward with both the rest of my Beast of the Midian as well as Tajak the Overseer. Tajak the Overseer, as well as the combined attacks from the Beast of the Midian, was able to finish off Virzil the Broken, and just like that, both those monsters collapsed, and at the same time, Tajak was the one that put the last wound directly onto Virzil the Broken. And because both those characters have Eye of the God chart, I rolled off for that one. And Kari got +1 to initiative, so now she's hella fast, and Tajak got +1 to his weapon skill as well, making him deadlier in close combat. And that was amazing. However, close combat over here on the top of the battlefield between the Flesh Carnival as well as the Sea Stone Sorrow did not go according to plan. I was only able to kill 2 of those poor guys. I was able to kill 2 members of the Sea Stone Sorrows. And that's because when I rolled for my frequency mutations, I rolled Slug Brain, so my guys had always strike last, so that part was horrific. So I managed to kill 2 Sea Stone Sorrows. Well, the Sea Stone Sorrows, however, they managed to kill 6 of my Flesh Carnival. Needless to say, I failed this combat by a landslide. So I had to take a break test, and unfortunately for me, I failed that break test, so I fled. And even with Swiss Stride, I only fled back 6 inches. So as you can see here, the Sea Stone Sorrows decided to pursue. They rolled up forward 8, so because they just chopped down and absolutely murder my Flesh Carnival, just destroy that unit off the face of the planet, which is all kinds of sad. However, combat between the Morning Dawn as well as the Call of the Denied One as well as the Depravity Enoch went incredibly awesome on that part. Managed to kill pretty much the entirety of that unit. Only left 8 of those Dark Shards left alive. And then, by the way, they only managed to put 2 wounds directly into the Call of the Denied One, and that was about it. And I forgot to mention this. If you're wondering what happened to the Sign of Self, which is my other chaos chair, if you're wondering what happened to that one, I declared a charge with the Sign of Self first, and as a charge reaction, of course, the Morning Dawn decided to open up with their crossbows directly into it. So because of that, they were able to put enough wounds to finish off the Sign of Self. So if you're wondering why that one didn't make it to the battle, that's why. I forgot to mention that. I do apologize. However, my 2 chariots, needed to say, between all the combats, the impact tests, there's only 8 of those guys left. I win this by a landslide. So because of that, Lady Dominant has to take a break test. She needs Snake Eyes to stay. She needs to say she doesn't get it, even with the reroll. So because of that, she flees back 12 inches exactly. She rolls Boxcar. So because of that, those Morning Dawn guys just fly off the battlefield and not to be seen again. So instead of pursuing a course, I test Restrain. I do a 180 with my Combat Reform to face directly into the back of the Sea Stone Sorrows, because that's just all nothing but good for me. So with the combat phase over, we go directly to the bottom of the turn for the Dark Elves. So with that, they take us directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Dark Elves, and this photo is taken after the move phase, and Lady Domina decides just to commit at this point. First thing she decides to do is declare a charge forward with Midas Day Kier, the Golden Lord of Skyros, who goes directly into the Beast of the Midian, getting that engaged in close combat. She then charges forward with Mistress Iridani, the Consort of Dagon, and goes directly into the right-hand flank of the Empty Orchestra, which is kind of sad for me. And then she also charges forward the Sea Stone Sorrow directly into the Beast of the Midian, with 2 units going directly into my Besogor. And to be honest, I think my Besogor have this, so I'm really not too worried about that. For her very last move, she decides to move up the Shacklemore Seers into a blocking position between the back of the Sea Stone Sorrows as well as with the my chariots, the Depravity Enoch, as well as the Call of the Denied One. And that pretty much makes up her move phase for this one. So here's a close-up of the move phase. As you can see here, we got the Shacklemore Seers going into a blocking position in order to prevent my 2 chariots from charging up forward, protecting the back of the Sea Stone Sorrows. And at the same time, here's a close-up of the Sea Stone Sorrows as well as Lord Midas Day Kier charging directly into the Beast of the Midian. And to be perfectly honest, I think my unit has this, so not too worried about that one for the most part. And at the same time, here is a close-up of Mistress Iridani, the Consort of Dagon, going directly into the right-hand flank of the Empty Orchestra as they battle against the Crimson Blades of Charon Kar. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. Luckily for me, during the magic phase, the only special I was able to get off was Doombolt. The Shacklemore Seers cast that directly onto the Depravity of Enoch. Managed to kill my last chariot, so that part was kind of a bummer, so I was pretty sad about that development. So with that, we go directly to the combat phase, and you can see in this photo, combat phase is actually pretty brutal, all things considered. First of all, I was able to put, 8 wounds directly onto the Sea Stone Sorrow, so that part was absolutely fantastic. I managed to tear up those guys at the same time. Meanwhile, Lord Midas Day Kier, as well as Calibos, fought directly against Inkari, the Ravager of Ulthuan. She decided to declare a challenge, and I decided to answer that challenge with my own character, so that part was awesome as well. Now, she did, of course, use the Chill Blade against me, which automatically automatically wounds if she managed to hit me, but I was able to ward save those wounds with my Talisman of Endurance. So that part was absolutely fantastic as well. At the same time, I was also able to put a bunch of wounds directly onto Lord Midas Day Cure. I think I managed to put 2 wounds directly onto that guy, so that part was kind of cool. So because our characters are still engaged in close combat, they did manage to kill off 6 of my of my Beast of the Midi, my 6 of my Bestigor, so that part was kind of sad, but, you know, them's the break at this point. Needless to say, of course, she has to take a break test for her Seastone Sorrows, because I beat those guys bad. So needless to say, she failed her panic test, so the Seastone Sorrows go running directly back against 6 inches, which of course causes a panic test for the Shacklemore Seers, which they failed, unfortunately, so because they fled, I think, 10 inches to the left-hand side. Meanwhile, Lord Midas Day Cure, as well as my unit, the Beast of the Midi, are still engaged in close combat as well. Meanwhile, combat between the Empty Orchestra as well as the Crimson Blades was actually kind of crazy. Mistress Iridani, of course, declared a challenge against my character, my Infernal Raptress. Needless to say, she had no problem killing my Infernal Raptress, which is actually kind of sad at that point. So I was kind of sad about that. However, when I decided to concentrate my attack, I took my flankers on the right-hand side. They directed their attacks directly into Mistress Iridani, and I was able to actually kill her off. So that part was pretty epic, all things considered. Armor piercing really helped out on that one as well. So because of that, she's off the bat. I also managed to kill 3 more members of the Crimson Blades, and the Crimson Blades was able to kill, when it's all said and done after combat and everything else, they managed to kill off 6 more of my Demonettes, so that part was kind of sad. But needless to say, I'm unbreakable, so I just stand my ground for the most part. So the combat phase over, we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Legion of Chaos, and this photo is taken after the move phase, and of course I declare a charge, and since the Seastone Sorrows are fleeing, and the Call of the 9-1 charges directly into a fleeting unit, he just catches those guys and destroys them and kills the entire unit by running them over like a bunch of gophers with the Gorbeast chair, and go directly into the left-hand flank of Midas Day Cure. So that part was pretty awesome as well. And at the same time, I also charge in what's left of my Nightkin, as well as Telemachon and Lyras into the back of the Crimson Blades, and that pretty much makes it my move phase. And here's a close-up of the move phase with my Gorbeast Chariot going directly into the left-hand flank of Lord Midas Day Cure as well as Kalibos. So with the move phase over with, I skip the magic phase just because I don't think it's risky enough to do it, and we go directly to the combat phase. So in the combat phase, I managed to finish off Lord Midas Day Cure with Inkari, the Ravager of Ulthuan. So because that character is dead, the rest of my fighters can now fight against directly into Kalibos. Kalibos managed to kill off a couple more members of the Beast of the Midian, so that part was kind of sad. But at the end of the day, I was able to finish off that Manticore as well as a General on top, which is all kinds of cool. As this point, the Lady Down decides to kind of call the game at this point because she knows she's not going to win it, so that brings another victory for yours truly. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the After Action Report because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Now it's time for the After Action Report. This is part of the battle report. We talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the After Action Report for the Golden Age Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report number 101, and this one being a victory for yours truly. In the end, I was able to score 2,794 victory points for Lady Domina, and Lady Domina was able to score 1,101 points. For my losses, I lost the Infernal Raptress, the Children of Ryan, the Flesh Carnival, the Proud of Enoch, the Sign of Sylph, the Resplendent Stalkers, as well as the Slender Slaughterers. At the same time, Lady Domina's force over, she lost Lord Midas Day Cure, the Golden Lord of Skyros, as well as Kalibos, Sister Sinner, the Oracle of Kos, Captain Lodi Day Cure, the Golden Sun, Mistress Iridani, the Consort of Dagon, the Seastone Sorrows, the Morning Dawn, the Shadowrunners, the Storms of Kos, Virzo the Broken, as well as Rathrek the Maw. And just to be honest with this one, this game was extremely bloody. If this was a real battle, like in real life, this would have been a costly victory for me. I got extremely lucky in this battle for one simple reason. The Crimson Blades of Charon Carr was pretty much blunted by my Empty Orchestra. That first round of combat was a complete fluke. Usually the Crimson Blades just tear through units. Unfortunately, Down just kind of flood for the most part, so because I got extremely lucky. Had that not happened, I think this battle would have turned out much differently because the Crimson Blades would have been able to sweep to the right and hit me on the right hand flank with my Beast of the Midian, and it just would have tore up my units all kinds of bad. At the same time, Magic wasn't really very impressive in this battle. I might have to rethink taking a Herald of Slaanesh. The Herald of Slaanesh is great and all, but it's not really doing much for me, so I'm thinking about actually replacing that character with another Chaos Sorcerer, Or maybe another Bray Shaman, maybe. So that way I have 2 magic casters at the same time. So I'm actually thinking about changing that up a little bit, just to add a little bit more magic oomph for me. At the same time, my Nightkin were freaking on point during this battle. They just kind of destroyed things left and right. So I have this plan in mind where actually I'm thinking about doubling the size of the Nightkin and adding some Sorcerers in there and stuff like that. I don't know. It's a thing that's going through my head right now. So I might want to accommodate my list in order to make sure I can take more of those guys as well. One of the biggest problems I had in this battle was that my Flesh Carnival, those guys got destroyed by the Seastone Sorrows. It was a massive mistake. They got destroyed. I really underestimated Strength 4 Dark Elves in a Horde formation, and that unit really proves what happens if happening when you make that mistake at the same time. At the same time, though, Inkari, the Ravager of Ulthuan, and Dejak, the Overseer, and my Beast of the Minion, long live those guys. They killed a War Hydra, they took on a Charybdis, and they also kitted out a Combat Lord on a Mana Core with all the upgrades. Inkari is quite literally the GOAT, as well as figuratively, and as long as I play this army, I will always run this Doombull and its kit. It is freaking unstoppable. With all that being said, this was still a fantastic game against an amazing opponent, and just like always, I am looking forward to the rematch. So that's going to do it for this one, you guys, for Battle Report 101. Please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. I will catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.